To start the recording. Thank you. Good to see you all. This is a period when we are experiencing an eclipse of the sun. It's still going on in some places. So the forces, the negative forces of mind tend to be ascendant at this time. So it's useful now, especially thinking about the situation in Israel and in Gaza, the retaliation, the atrocities that the Hamas has inflicted upon the Israeli people, and the barbaric response of the Israeli government in response to that. Excuse me if that doesn't fit with your political ideas. What's going on in Ukraine, our Dharma friends that are ill and so forth, Jeffrey Hopkins and so forth. So we're going to do, with those things in mind, we're going to do our prayers, the usual prayers that Mary Ellen was about to put up. And then we will also do some meditation. So Mary Ellen, would you like to put that up? So, Sangye Chodang Soki Chognam La Changchu Badu Dagni Kyapsu Chi Dagi Chunen Gipe Sognam Ki Drola Panche Sangye Tuparsho. So this verse has two things: taking refuge, going for refuge, as Yangtze Rinpoche prefers rather than saying taking refuge, going for refuge, and generating bodhicitta. So going for refuge implies that you have the two causes, one of which is fear, we were just talking about before class, as one of the causes of fear or anticipation or trepidation that we were without some sort of support, refuge, like the refuge of the bus thing that you stand under while waiting for the bus to protect you from the rain. Something without that we won't be able to ensure ourselves from rebirth in the lower realms, or our ability to help others without the support of the Dharma. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create, through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all migrating beings, all beings. Sangye Chodang Soki Chognam La Changchu Badu Dagni Kyapsu Chi Dagi Chushe Dagi Chunyen Gipe Sognam Gi Drola Panchir Sangye Drupa Sho. And then a mandala offering. By offering this ground, so one visualizes the Vajra ground, but visualizing, by offering this ground anointed with perfume, scented water and so forth, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru in the center, the four continents in the four directions, the sun and the moon, visualized as a Buddha realm. May all migrators enjoy such a pure realm. O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please send down a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guru Radha Mandalakam Niryatayami. Then sitting comfortably. Good to see a couple of others here. Mikhail and Ida and Jamie. I don't remember seeing before. We're going to do a little meditation. First, a very simple breathing meditation. Sit comfortably in the meditative posture if you can. If you're on a chair, main thing is to try to sit with your back straight, kind of like when I'm taking my blood pressure. They say, put your feet on your feet on the floor and your back straight. So relax your body, relax your mind. Watch your breathing, identify it, and hold it in mindfulness to the exclusion of everything else, while recognizing the difference of an inhalation from an exhalation, and recognizing the gradation of the breath when you're breathing in a big breath, a small breath, when you're exhaling a big exhalation or a short exhalation, and so forth. First essential point here is not to let your mind be distracted by other thoughts. So don't, if you're an intellectual kind of person, don't be multitasking, thinking about other things. Just watch the breathing. Secondly, don't fixate on the body. You don't have to pay attention to that, nor the input from the senses. Successful in letting the inner chatter die down. Now turn your attention to the contents of your mental consciousness, that is to say, your thoughts and states of mind, whether they be positive or negative, images, memories, plans, observations, as a first way of recognizing the mental consciousness, which itself is so subtle, that we need some aid to sort of find it, recognize it. Consciousness is that which is clear in knowing, and here in this, we're recognizing especially the clarity aspect, the conventional clarity or conventional clear light nature. The fact that the mind is conventionally devoid of any obstruction to the arisal or reabsorption of events, mental events. As this object is more subtle than the breathing, if you were to have noticed the quality of the breathing while watching it, while being mindful of the respiration, you would find that relatively gross compared to the breathing now when you have a finer object, more subtle object. This conventional clear light nature of the mind is with us all the time. If we don't recognize it, we lose a special opportunity to recognize that we can develop good qualities. We can change. We can teach an old dog new tricks. We can get rid of our faults. And to recognize that now is a result of this auspicious moment of having this life of leisure and endowment, this auspicious moment that we don't ordinarily think of as special. We may think of the, nice sunny day as special, or the day we get our tax rebates or return as special. But this life of leisure endowment is highly meaningful. What is the meaning of life? Is recognizing the utility of this life of leisure and endowment to create the causes for our ultimate happiness, real happiness, Dharma happiness at first. Not ordinary contaminated happiness alone. And the ability this life affords us the ability to work for the sake of others, to overcome our prejudices, recognizing our equality with all beings, whether they be armed invaders, whether they be political opponents, recognizing that in the past and in the future, They have been and will be our friends, our mothers. They all have the same potential as us. They all have this Buddha nature, conventional Buddha nature, and even our ultimate Buddha nature. They all want to be happy and free of suffering, although they are often misguided in how to find that happiness, how to eliminate their suffering. They create in doing so with deluded mind, they create the cause of more suffering for themselves in the future. And end up destroying any virtuous actions, the results of any virtuous actions, the karmic seeds of their virtuous actions through their anger. This auspicious moment now can be used to begin that quest to find our own real happiness, dharma happiness, with the aim of, along the way, helping sentient beings, ultimately being able to benefit them perfectly by ourselves becoming enlightened. How to lead living beings, even if it takes eons and eons to lead them from bad states, let's say as humans right now, as opponents, as combatants, as enemies and so forth, to lead them out of that, lead them from the lower realms into human rebirths, to teach them the Dharma, to lead them, to give them the tools for themselves to extricate themselves from cyclic existence and to achieve enlightenment. To be able to do that perfectly, effortlessly, spontaneously, we have to become a Buddha, an enlightened being, an omniscient being, whether you use the name Buddha or not. In order to do that, we need to accumulate the two collections of merit and wisdom. In order to accumulate those, we need to know how to do that through the Buddha's extensive teachings on the Bodhisattva's deeds to collect merit, and the profound teachings of emptiness to accumulate the collection of wisdom, both of which are explained in Chandrakirti's entry into the middle way, the Madhyamakavatara, which commented on Nagarjuna's fundamental wisdom, which was Nagarjuna's elucidation of the Buddha's intention in the Prajnaparamita Sutras. And we have access to the commentary on that by Lama Tsong Khapa, which we're explaining today. So I'm going to listen, contemplate, and meditate. So meditate here means once you have an insight, something clicks, to hold that for some moments in your mind, to leave an imprint. The same way that when we have an insight into emptiness, not to just leave it at that and go on to something else, but to hold it for some instance, to leave an imprint in our mind. I'm going to listen, contemplate, and meditate on the material of the class in order to accumulate the two collections so that I can eventually become successful in my quest to achieve Buddhahood for the sake of all living beings. I'm going to listen in order to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Then bringing your attention back. Good to see and see many of you. Amy's here. Hi, Amy. Rocio. Jamie, you've been here before, but I forgot. Where are you from? Where are you living? Where are you located? If you, on most times, you can press the space bar if you're on a computer to unmute. Okay, don't worry. Don't worry. So, we have, today is a very sad day, obviously because of the turmoil that's going on in Israel. Let me try to get this arranged here.
George, before you start, do you want to ask about dates, or do you want to do it at the end of class?
Yeah, let's ask now. I just wanted to mention that today is eclipse of the moon, eclipse of the sun, when merit is multiplied, because at times like this, the negative mind is more prominent, and to be able to create virtue at a moment like this takes more effort, like swimming against the stream, as opposed to times when everything is sunny and golden, or the time of the Buddha. It's said that keeping one vow today in this degenerate age for one day is more meritorious than keeping all the vows of a fully ordained monk at the time of the Buddha, when things were easier. So at times like this, in this degenerate age, when things are even more difficult, when conflict is going on and there's an eclipse of the sun, to be able to create merit at moments like this, to restrain ourselves from negativity, is even more meritorious. Now, our continuity of classes is already planned out. We're just one doubt about whether we should have a class on the weekend of Thanksgiving, which would be the Saturday, the 25th of November. We're thinking to have a class, but a couple of people are saying they might have to miss. How many people would miss if we had it then? Okay, maybe a good number of people. Okay, so let's skip, Sheila, let's skip Thanksgiving weekend, the 25th. And so our schedules will be posted on the website, I think, so we know what the classes are. Okay, thank you for that. And yeah, so all of these things that are going on in the world right now. Also, our Dharma friends, Jeffrey Hopkins is very sick, and many others are sick. The wheel of sharp weapons is descending upon us, slicing and dicing us and other people in the world as a result of our past negative deeds. So this is an opportunity to overcome that. Let me ask if there are any questions, any observations that you'd like to ask or share before we begin. John, you have something?
Yes, thanks, Venerable George. This came up for me this week. It's an observation in that category, because last class that there was a pretty excellent discussion surrounding this is multiple. How did they translate it? The equalities,
Right.
And
equalities or samenesses.
sameness is right. And then I think in the context of that, somebody, I'm forgetting who it was, but brought up the classic analogy of mistaking a snake for a rope. Sorry, other way around, mistaking a rope for a snake. And right, and
you could probably mistake a
right,
snake
well,
for a rope also. Right.
Yeah, if you're lucky. And then I started also, you shared with us that Paul Williams article. So I was sort of on a roll of looking into the topic, and thinking about the snake topic in particular reminded me of something that I thought I had read in reading the English translation of Larmin Chemo. And so I looked, and it turned out I found a really interesting citation I wanted to share, because it's not the rope snake, but it's another snake analogy. It turns out it's also from Chandrakirti's Madhyamakavatara. So this is in this mass 3-volume translation of the Lamrim Chemo. I'm sure many of you know. This is the third volume, so this is in the Hlakdong section, page 197. If you want to look up. And Lama Tsongkhapa quotes Chandrakirti here, saying Chandrakirti's explanation of the Middle Way commentary. So it's the commentary on Madhyamakavatara. And this is now from this Madhyamakavatara Bhashan. To elucidate this very point, the irrelevance of such to innate afflictions, by way of an example, and this is now the example. Someone sees a snake living in the wall of his house. To ease his concern, someone else says, "There is no elephant here." Alas, to others, it is ridiculous to suppose that this would dispel the fear of the snake. And I think that I look, and I think we still get to read that. I think it's coming.
Right.
In the but because George, you shared with us that article about the importance of the gakja, the object of refutation, or and how essential it is to establish that, so that you know what you're refuting.
Right.
So then this little I guess example was I just loved it. It's so colorful. The idea that most of us, being alerted to something of dire importance, and then being consoled by something utterly irrelevant to that.
Right. So that's very, very, very on point, because the examples we gave before, often they talk about shooting at a target, thinking to shoot at a target, but not having identified the target. So you're not going anywhere. So here the example of thinking that would be effective to, so the idea of shooting the target means that you've identified the object of negation and you're doing something to destroy it, right? So here you might identify, in a sense, you have a vague sense of fear. You haven't identified exactly the antidote to the snake, and you're applying the wrong antidote by saying there's no elephant in the room. So yeah, right. So thank you for that. That will be coming up again later. Thank you. Anyone else have observation, a question from before? How were we doing? No? Okay. So just to remind ourselves where we are, we've just begun the section on the sixth bhumi, where the Bodhisattva develops a surpassing practice of the perfection of wisdom. Of course, had practice of some kind of practice of the perfection of wisdom before, realized emptiness directly on the first bhumi, but sequentially through the bhumis, as other factors were increased, especially on the fifth bhumi, the perfection of special practice of the perfection of concentration gives the sixth bhumi now a special now, a surpassing power of the perfection of wisdom. And the quotation that we had that Chandrakirti quotes from the Dashabhumika, the 10 Bhumi Sutra, that the Bodhisattvas who enter the sixth bhumi from the fifth, they enter by way of these 10 samenesses of phenomena, basically just that all phenomena are the same in being empty of inherent existence. You could say they kind of blankets all of these 10 individual variations of that. The first two were a little bit in question. What was the difference between signless and characterlessness? Signlessness and characterlessness. Geshe Zopa explained, I think I mentioned in the class, but maybe it was only in the discussion group, that he took that as meaning that that signlessness meant sort of the meditative state. When you were in the state of meditative equipoise on emptiness, there were no signs of inherent existence at all. There's no appearance of inherent existence. No conventional signs appear, red, blue, or anything like this. And the second one, characterlessness, meant to the establishment of emptiness by means of reasoning, that you could establish that there was no character, no inherent nature of phenomena through reasoning. So we'd gone over that. We'd gotten to the pushing my finger the wrong way. We'd in Thupten Jinpa's translation, the section identifying the forces opposing the understanding of suchness. There was the quotation from the Bodhisattva Charyavatara: without touching or contacting the imputed entity, the absence of its reality cannot be grasped. That was the origin for sharing that long, complicated article by Paul Williams. Just got curious, how many people attempted to read some of it? Okay, good number. Okay, not an awful lot. Rocio, did you get a chance? No, take a look a little bit. I would say the first, what I was thinking to put up was the first 4 pages. So maybe just take a look at that just to get an idea what's being talked about. So we've talked about that, and now we've reached this section that we're beginning today. In Anne Klein's translation, it's page 165. Let me get to that. And in Jinpa's, what page in Jinpa's text is this?
173, I believe.
173, thank you. Okay. So I just mentioned this last time, so let me read again. So it says, now to do this. So now to do what? So I have to read the paragraph before that. It is not enough to have identified true existence as postulated, as imputed by proponents of philosophical tenets, nor their corresponding apprehensions of true existence. It is most essential, therefore, to have identified well the innate grasping at true existence. So we're talking about what our goal is from the Prasangika point of view, But to be able to do this, we're going to have to delve into the Svatantrika point of view. Still, what we want to be able to do is identify not the artificial apprehension of inherent existence, but the innate grasping at true existence or an inherent existence. Here, from the Prasangika point of view, true existence and inherent existence mean the same thing.
I'm sorry. Where are we starting from? I'm lost.
So again, who had said, Richard, or someone said what page we are in Jimba?
I said 173, but I can't find where you're starting.
So just the paragraph before that. So after the quotation from the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way, there's a long section. It's not broken up into paragraphs, but about in the middle of that,
okay,
it says it is not enough to have identified the existence as postulated by proponents of philosophical tenets,
okay,
or the corresponding apprehensions of true existence. It is most essential, therefore, to have identified well, properly, the innate grasping at true existence, which persists, which has persisted since beginningless time and is present both in those whose minds are affected by philosophical tenets, it says tempered by philosophical tenets, and those whose minds are not affected. So that means that innate conception is there all the time, even if you're sort of under the sway, affected by or tempered by philosophical ideas that you've thought about, others have taught you, philosophical systems that you've read, Christianity, Hinduism, Judaism, whatever, Islam's idea of God or whatever, still the innate grasping is still there, both in minds that are affected by tenets and those who are not, as well as the purported true existence. We have to identify as well the purported true existence. So that means hypothetical true existence, because true existence does not exist. We have to identify it as well, which is grasped at by such an innate mind. So that you have the innate grasping and its purported object that it's believing in, mediated by the mental image. The different things going on there, right? Without identifying these, one might engage in eliminating the object of negation through reasoning, but this would not undermine whatsoever the clinging to true existence that persists since beginningless time, and thus miss the entire purpose at hand. So that is without identifying those well. Now, so this is beginning again today. Now, to do this, we must first identify the grasping at true existence that lies within one's own mind. That's the innate grasping, and understand how the various Majjhamaka reasonings function to directly and indirectly to eradicate its object. So eradicate its object, that means the grasping, you have to identify the grasping and use the reasonings. How do we say? Now, to do this, we must identify the grasping at true existence. So when we were talking about the 4 essential points of meditation, one was identifying the object of negation, which there's the objective, the purported true existence that you have to identify. You have to identify the mental image of that that's actually existing in your mind. And you have to identify the grasping, the subjective aspect that's believing that, that's grasping that, that's assenting to that view that lies within our own mind, and to understand how the various Majjhamaka reasonings function directly and indirectly to eradicate its object. That means the reasonings don't immediately cause the ignorance, the grasping to disappear, but they refute, contradict the object that's believed in, mediated by the mental image that purported inherent existence. Negation and affirmation that are directed solely outward will have scant benefit. So I think we had just sort of mentioned that last time. So on a related note, if one can understand the identification of what is to be negated according to the Prasangika Madhyamaka and the Svatantrika Madhyamaka, one will be able to appreciate the fine differences in their views. Question always comes up, why are we studying these other tenet systems if supposedly the Prasangika view is the correct one? Why bother with learning the incorrect ones? Because in so doing, the example that we've given through our tenets classes and elsewhere is kind of like to ascend to the upper floor through the staircase. You have to step by step in order to get to the fine view of emptiness, like up on the first floor there or the upper stories. You have to go through, you have to progress through these various other views. If you have an imprint from previous lives, you don't have to spend as much time on those other views, but they can help to elucidate more clearly what Prasangika is saying. Okay. Hence, this presentation has two parts: identifying, grasping at true existence according to the Svatantrika Madhyamaka, and identifying, grasping at true existence according to the Prasangika Madhyamaka. Prasangika being more subtle, so we're starting with a slightly grosser one of the Svatantrika. So first, identifying, grasping at true existence according to the Svatantrika. This has three outlines: identifying true existence and grasping at true existence from the Svatantrika texts, what true existence is and what grasping at true existence is. And then second, presenting truth and falsity within the context of worldly convention through the analogy of magical illusion. And three, explaining the analogy by relating it to the actual referent. Okay, so this is a tough part. If you thought material before was tough, what do they say? Pull up your boots or put on your big boy pants or something like that. The text says, Lama Tsongkhapa's text says, other reliable treatises of Svatantrika make no clear identification of the object of negation. So in the Tibetan, if you're reading along in the Tibetan, the word that's translated here is reliable. I think both Anne and Jimpa use the same translation, reliable. Anne says other reliable source books of the Svatantrika. The Tibetan word is tup, like when we talk about the Muni. But here, it's just a Tibetan word that's translating something that means that is capable, that is reliable, that's suitable to be used. Other reliable treatises of the Svatantrika, other than the Kamalashila's Madhyamaka Aloka, which we're going to quote in a minute, other reliable treatises of Svatantrika make no clear identification of the object of negation when they're talking about negating true existence. From their point of view, they don't use the word inherent existence. Svatantrika is talking about refuting negating true existence. Because for Svatantrika, there's the assumption that things do inherently exist conventionally. But Kamalashila's light of the middle way, it's called the Majjhamaka Aloka, presents a criterion for conventional existence, the contrary of which can be recognized as constituting the criterion of ultimate or true existence. Or as Anne translates, other reliable source books of the Svatantrika school do not have a clear identification of the object of negation. So that means, from Svatantrika point of view, they want to refute or negate true existence, and to do so, as Bodhisattvacharya Vatara said, you have to identify the object of negation. Other texts, Svatantrika texts, don't clearly identify what is the object of negation, but the existence that is the opposite of the mode of conventional existence, explained in Kamalashila's Illumination of the Middle Way, which is the text we just talked about, is to be known as the ultimate or true existence. And therefore, let us explain that. So those of you who want to go into more detail of these things, here are a couple of books. If you have them, or if you may have in your library. I bet Richard has, or John has in your library, Donald Lopez's A Study of Svatantrika. So this is Donald Lopez studied with Jeffrey Hopkins. I think nowadays he's still a professor at University of Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. And this section is mirrored in this text, in some ways clearer than Anne or Jimpa's translations, and also gets some other material. Even perhaps more reliable is Jeffrey Hopkins' text, Tsongkhapa's Final Exposition of Wisdom, which I would highly recommend. I know Shanka has a copy because he's mentioned it many times. Jeffrey's translation of this section also will be referring to just this one section because it's very, very complicated. And I'd like to read, as you will see, when we're talking about the complication of this quotation, we could just go through it as though we understood, but it's worth understanding. At one point, Jeffrey mentions in his notes, if you happen to have this book, Shanka, you have this book, right? On page 190, in a footnote, he says, so he's commenting on the explanation that Jimpa and Klein and others take as the explanation of this verse, annotations by one of the great lamas. Let me see. I wanted to read that. Maybe that's the wrong page.
Are you reading from Lama Tsongkhapa's text?
I'm just going to read a comment by Jeffrey Hopkins in this. Actually, it's a note on page 194.
194, okay.
So at the bottom it says, even that's maybe not. I thought I had it at my fingertips. I'm sorry. Okay, I can't find the exact quote I'm looking for. I'll find it later. Essentially, Hopkins says the commentary by Nauem Pelden, which all of these other translations are relying upon, seems excessively complicated. I had to chuckle about that because, it seems to be complicated enough, but even for Jeffrey Hopkins to mention that the explanations seem to be excessively complicated, can give your mind some solace when you're pondering over these things, okay? So let's read what the text says. So now there's a quotation. This is a quotation from Kamala Shila's Light to the, or Illumination of the Middle Way, or someone translated the Splendor of the Middle Way. Shanga?
It's on page 191.
Okay.
190 right at the bottom, and then it continues to 191.
Okay. The quotation that I'm thinking of. You're psychic, right?
I have a PDF of it, and I just did a search.
So where did it say? So what does it say there?
Hang on. Yeah, it says Nawang Peldon's reading strikes me as excessively complicated, but the matter requires more analysis.
So which page is that on?
Page 190.
At
the bottom. Way at the
oh,
bottom.
right, at the bottom. Nawang Peldon's reading is almost the very last, next to the last sentence. Nawang Peldon's reading strikes me as excessively complicated, but the matter requires more analysis. Okay, so we'll go over this slowly. So the quotation from Kamala Shila's text says, though things do not possess essence in reality, they don't have a kind of a truly existent nature, right? They don't possess essence in reality. The erroneous mind reifies them. Do you know what that means, reify? Suvansh, do you know what the word reify means? What does it mean?
Yes, it means to make solid, solidify.
Could be. Usually here in these philosophical texts, it has more to do with superimpose, add something which is not there. The erroneous, though things do not possess essence in reality, the erroneous mind reifies them contrary to their nature. Or as Anne says, the mistaken awareness that superimposes, that's the word reify that Chimpa chose to use. Kind of in philosophical literature, they're talking like that. Though things do not possess essence in nature, the erroneous mind reifies them, superimposes on them contrary to their nature. This erroneous mind is called the conventional. That's what Jimpa says. Actually, the Sanskrit just says, and the Tibetan just says, the Sanskrit says samvriti. And the Tibetan translation of that in this case is kunso. Those of you who've studied before, does anyone know what samvriti means? Roshio, have you heard that term before, samvriti? John, do you know what samvriti means?
Usually it's pointed out that the basic meaning is to cover over something, to conceal it, or to cover it.
The term, usually we find the two truths, right? Samvriti satya, which we translate as conventional truth, relative truth, truth for a concealer. So the samvriti has three different meanings that will be coming up later. It's a word that's very, very important. So here it's not talking about this mind is called the conventional. It's calling it's a samvriti. It's a concealer. It's something that prevents our understanding things correctly, or as Anne says, the mistaken awareness that superimposes on things which in reality, which ultimately are without their own entitiness, an aspect opposite to that, absence of inherent existence or ultimate entitiness, it superimposes something that's not really there, is called the concealer, samvriti. That's from Anne's translation of that. When Geshe Zopa taught this, also you have to parse what is the meaning of samvriti in various situations. Sometimes samvriti just means conventional, like when we say conventional truth. It can mean relative truth, and it can mean, when we say samvriti satya, the word satya means truth, or it can mean a truth for a concealing mind, an ignorant mind, or as we joked earlier, Jeffrey Hopkins used to call it truth for a jerk, right? Something that a jerk would believe in. Our mind that believes in and is assenting to inherent existence. Okay, let me continue on. Though things do not possess essence in reality, reading Jimpa, the erroneous mind reifies them, superimposes them, contrary to their nature. This erroneous mind is called the concealer, rather than using the conventional, because, as it were, it obscures suchness, it obscures ultimate nature, or through it, suchness is covered over. In all of the translations that we have into English, they all use Lama Tsong Khapa's quotation in Gompa Rapso. In the actual, in Kamalashila's actual text itself, he doesn't say covered over. In the Tibetan text, it says gepa. In all of the Tibetan editions, if you actually look of this quotation, it says gekpa, which means obscures. So it's another synonym to dripa, to say that this concealing mind acts to prevent us from seeing things because it obscures them, it covers them, it hinders our understanding of the way that they actually are. So then Kamalashila then quotes from the Lankavatara Sutra, which is a Mahayana Sutra, right? Usually associated with Chittamatra, but ultimate meaning can be understood also from the Prasangika point of view. Lankavatara is the one that, in one of the famous quotes that talks about all three realms are mind only. So it's one of the sources of the Chittamatra, those quotations from it, but it has many, many other deeper meanings. So this is a quotation from the Lankavatara. The arising of things is on the conventional. On the ultimate, there is no intrinsic nature. That which is mistaken toward no intrinsic nature is held to be a concealer of the perfect truth. And translates that as the quotation from the Lankavatara, the descent into Lanka. Things are produced conventionally. Ultimately, they are without inherent existence. That which is mistaken about the lack of inherent existence is asserted as the concealer of reality. So in Jeffrey Hopkins' text, the final exposition on wisdom, he translates it a little more, just a little slightly different. The production of things exists conventionally. Here, both of these are saying, Jimpas is saying things, the arising of things is on the conventional. One has to understand, as Jeffrey is saying here, this is talking about, this quotation should be understood as meaning production exists conventionally. It's not saying that the things are conventionally existent. It's saying production of things exists conventionally. Ultimately, production lacks inherent existence. So this will be the hallmark of the beginning of Nagarjuna's fundamental wisdom, when he talks about production does not inherently exist. A seed does not inherently produce a sprout, and so forth. The consciousness mistaken with regard to the lack of inherent existence is asserted as the obscurer of reality, or the concealer of reality. Okay. How are we doing so far? Following, more or less? William?
Where is the quote? Where in the Hopkins is the quotation you were just?
It's on page 189. At the beginning of that section, Autonomy School on True Existence.
I wanted to comment that reifying, it seems to me, could also mean making permanent in some way. All of these distinctions, or in the Buddhist case, anatta means that your idea that you have a soul, that you have an Atman, is a projection onto this dynamic system of karma, etc., which is the reality of how we exist. And the Atman, so the Buddhist teaching is anatta, no soul, and all Buddhists agree on that. In some ways, this seems to me could be reduced, that we reify the situation of our existence and reify a soul, a permanent thing, an unchanging thing in some way.
Right.
And it's the same with all. It's the same with all phenomena, that they're compounded, they're dependently arisen. I hesitate to use that word. They're dependently arisen, and therefore they cannot be permanent in any way. So to reify them.
Here we're not talking about permanence so much. We do reify or superimpose permanence on those things that are impermanent. This is when we talk about these four wrong views. We study it, all Buddhists accept that, these wrong conceptions that we grasp at that which is impermanent, we grasp it at it as being permanent. We reify or superimpose upon it some kind of permanence. But the thing we're talking about here is not just permanence. We're talking about inherent existence, true existence or inherent existence. To those things that actually lack true existence, we superimpose on them an inherent or true existence. And the way that comes about is what's being talked about here. What's the mechanism? From the Prasangika point of view, things actually appear to be inherently existent, truly existent. From the Svatantrika point of view, as we're going to see here, it's not, things actually appear the way they actually are. They don't appear to be inherently existent. That appearance is modified by the conception of true existence in our mental consciousness that affects the way that we see, but the things actually appear to be conventionally existent, inherently existent. So there's a subtle difference here. Suvansh?
Well, Venerable George, so the point being made over here, okay, is about concealing, right? And how the mind conceals. And so, and how the mind reifies. and as a result, the truth is not seen.
Right.
And so the Madhyamika, the entire 6th chapter moves from scene to scene to scene to scene with debates between the Madhyamika and some other person, and the point always being that this person comes out and says that item inherently exists, and then the next scene changes, that item inherently exists, and the Madhyamika, yes, counters it, right? But what I find really begging in this is, at some point in time, the question arises, okay, I give in to the Madhyamika, the Madhyamika makes the point, but then the Madhyamika never explains, okay, well, okay, we live in this illusion, fine, you are right, but can you please explain ontologically how things work? And the Madhyamika never does that.
No, it does. It definitely does. That's a misconception of earlier interpreters of Madhyamaka that said Madhyamaka had no position. But Lama Tsongkhapa points out very clearly the Madhyamaka, especially the Prasangika, does accept positions, but generally to overcome other people's misconceptions, Madhyamaka just refutes their position because all of their positions are assuming that things truly exist, or that things inherently exist. So at that point, you just refute that. But we will present that phenomena. Well, that's coming up in the main part of the 6th chapter is not just refuting all these things, but is actually showing how phenomena are empty of inherent existence through reasoning, generally through scriptures and reasoning. So what's your thought?
So are you saying that as we go forward, right? And we don't have to get into the details now, but are you saying as we go forward, the Madhyamikan is going to come out with a positive statement that goes beyond simply everything being dependently arising?
Well, it depends. So let's look at it this way. You first recognize from the Buddhist teachings that the Buddha said we're in denial, that we believe things to exist in a certain way, and we're denying the way that they actually exist because essentially we're oblivious of it. Like, say, an alcoholic who is oblivious of the fact that they're an alcoholic, right? They don't want that. They're in denial if you say that. If the Buddha says phenomena are not inherently existent, people say, no, they inherently exist. For you to even to make that kind of statement that they don't exist is illogical because your statement has to be truly existent. So all of this is part of this presentation of Nagarjunas, of the Buddhas, really, to overcome our denial that phenomena are actually lacking inherent existence. We don't think of it as denial because we're not even aware of the way that we're believing. In the same way, an alcoholic may not believe that they have a problem with alcohol, right?
Okay, thank you.
John, what do you think?
I just want to express my sympathy with Suvansh's position of epistemological frustration with the Madhyamaka sometimes. And actually, if you wade into the Paul Williams article, one of the things that you'll discover is that which I don't know directly about, but there are entire schools of thought in Tibetan Buddhism that vigorously push back against particularly that problem, because the lack of ability to make positive truth claims from a prasangika madhyamaka point of view, then suggests to some of them that, it allows them, or somewhere along the line, and I don't know the exact line of thinking, but they end up reifying emptiness because they actually, although they give, I think, Venerable George will have to correct me, but I think that even though they're paying some lip service to prasangika madhyamaka being the highest view, their presentation of emptiness ultimately is not from a prasangika madhyamaka point of view.
Right. So right now, we haven't really gone through all of these details yet. So we have to get a little groundwork. So let's continue a little bit further. So this quotation from the Lankavatara Sutra is talking about the fact that either things or the arising of things, the production or generation of things, exists conventionally. But ultimately means from the point of view, so ultimately has different meanings. Ultimately can mean while in meditative equipoise on emptiness, there is no inherent existence, or from the point of view of a wisdom consciousness, there is no inherent existence. That which is mistaken about that which believes in, that which is grasping to inherent existence, that particular mind, that grasping mind, is called a concealer, or what was the other word that Jeffrey used? Obscurer, concealer, samvriti. So when we talk about samvriti satya, conventional truth, we can call one of the meanings of the etymologies of why it's called conventional or samvriti satya is that it obscures or conceals or conceals reality. It's kind of like the cataract over your eye that prevents you from seeing the way things actually are. So something which is true for that particular kind of ignorant mind that's grasping at inherent existence, that's not really true. That's true for them. The example, William must be tired now of being Santa Claus, but the naive, let's say ignorant or naive mind of the children who think that that's Santa Claus, that's concealing that particular mind is preventing them, obscuring them from seeing the reality. Okay, so that's that Jeffrey called it conventional truth or truth for a concealer. He coined the term truth for a jerk. Okay, so let's go on with Lama Tsong Khapa. So this is still quoting Kamalashila's Madhyamaka Aloka. So this is still, there was one paragraph, then Kamalashila quoted the Lankavatara. Now there's a further commentary by Kamalashila. Because what does he mean by it? The perception of things originates from this erroneous mind. What it reveals, namely, all the false things being perceived are stated to be conventional only. I find Jimpa's translation to be a bit difficult to understand here. Anne translates this since, rather than because, since an artificial awareness in the continuum of a proponent of true existence arises from that conception of true existence, all false things which, such as artificial awarenesses, see displayed by that conception of true existence, as if they are truly established, are called mere conventionalities, or as Jimpa says, conventional only. So both of those difficult to parse what they're saying. Let me read from Donald Lopez's text. Let me see if I have the right page here. Yeah. So Donald Lopez, in the study of Svatantrika, is talking about the same, everyone quotes the same citation from Kamalashila's text. You know who Kamalashila was? Ida, do you know who Kamalashila was?
I believe he wrote the stages of meditation,
He did, right?
and the Dalai Lama refers to that frequently.
Right. Jennifer, do you know anything more about who Kamalashila was?
I thought he was a proponent of Svatantrika, but
Right. Is he a Yogacara Svatantrika or a Sautrantika Svatantrika?
I don't know.
Who knows?
Sautantrika, maybe?
Who said? Ida. You said what? Sautantrika Svatantrika? Is that right?
Yes, but I'm not sure.
Doris, what do you think?
Yogacara. So I'm treading
Yogacara.
very carefully.
You're what? You're treading carefully?
Well, he's the Yogacara side, and I find that very confusing.
So he's generally, so Svatantrika was essentially what we call Svatantrika was initially enunciated by Bhava Viveka, right? You remember this story? Bhava Viveka, and who is his opponent?
Buddhapalita.
Buddhapalita. So Buddhapalita and Bhava Viveka. Bhava Viveka criticized Buddhapalita's presentation. Buddhapalita is kind of like the one who explained Nagarjuna first. He was Indian, came after Nagarjuna. He's before Chandrakirti, so this time before Chandrakirti. Buddhapalita kind of enunciated the correct understanding of Nagarjuna as essentially prasangika. And Bhava Viveka, another Indian contemporary with Buddhapalita, criticized him, his explanation, and said, "You got it wrong. You don't just use. You can't just establish emptiness by means of consequences, prasanga." That's why the idea of prasangika comes about, because the prasangika generally establish things at the beginning by means of consequences, refuting other people's understandings. Bhava Viveka said there are autonomous reasonings that are essentially inherently existent that you have to use. So Bhava Viveka was the originator of this Svatantrika school, autonomy school, that these reasonings are autonomous, or in other words, inherently existent. After Bhava Viveka, he was also kind of the leading toward the Sautrantika, although he didn't even call himself Svatantrika or Sautantrika Svatantrika. He's recognized as kind of the originator of the Sautrantika Svatantrika. Then one of his disciples, Gyanagarbha, who we will encounter in a moment, also is recognized generally as being Sautrantika Svatantrika, trying to get the words out. After that, Shantarakshita, was the founder essentially of the Yogacara Svatantrika that Doris said she had trouble comprehending. Yogacara Svatantrika. And Kamalashila is also considered to be Yogacara Svatantrika. So on the one hand, we have Bhava Viveka and Gyanagarbha as being Swatrantika Madhyamikas, and Shantarakshita and Kamalashila, who both came to Tibet, and as being Yogacara Svatantrikas. So
they were, sorry, Venerable, they were Lama and disciple, Shantarakshita and Kamalashila.
Kamalashila was a disciple of Shantarakshita. In fact, when Shantarakshita came at the time of Padmasambhava, when Padmasambhava was in Tibet, he asked them to invite Shantarakshita. Shantarakshita, when he left Tibet, he said, in the future, if you have problems with people, denigrating the correct understanding of Buddhism, you should invite my disciple Kamalashila. So Kamalashila came at the invitation of the king when the Hashan Mahayana, or Hoshan Mahayana, the Chinese influence that more or less said that no need to practice the path, just meditate on no thought and so forth. They had a famous debate at Samye. So that was Kamalashila. Kamalashila also wrote, at the request of the king, 3 different versions of the stages of meditation, the Bhavana Krama, the Gomrim, 1, 2, and 3, for different reasons. And he also composed this Madhyamaka Aloka, among other things. Kamalashila also wrote a commentary to the Dashabhumika and a commentary to the Rice Seedling Sutra also that we were talking about earlier. He also wrote a commentary to the Heart Sutra. So Kamalashila was a great, great scholar that the Tibetans revere because he was actually there. He came to Tibet like Atisha did. And he composed all of these texts, but they were from the point of view of the Svatantrika, especially the Yogacara Svatantrika. Okay, so I'm going to read that same paragraph after the quotation that Kamalashila made from he quoted or cited the Lankavatara Sutra, this statement. So, Donald Lopez.
What page, Venerable?
This is on page 144 in A Study of the Svatantrika. If you have the ebook, which you can look for some of these words. So he says, because an artificial awareness arises from that conception of true existence, all false things which such an artificial awareness sees displayed by that conception of true existence, as if they were truly established, are called mere conventionalities. Actually, it's the word mere isn't really the correct word here. They're only conventionalities. Moreover, that conception of true existence arises through the maturation of beginningless predispositions for error, whereby all living beings see phenomena displayed as if they had a true nature in reality. Therefore, all entities of false things which exist through the power of those sentient beings' thoughts are said to only exist conventionally. Doesn't seem to help much, right?
It's very similar to Einklein's.
Yeah, right. So his commentary to this says this, an awareness that mistaken, so this is not quoting Lama Tsongkhapa's Gompa Rapso, that Jimpa's text and Ann's text are quoting Gompa Rapso, right? And Jeffrey Kopkin's text in Final Exposition of Emptiness quotes this citation from Kamala Shila, and it doesn't quote the Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary in Gompa Rapso, but here this commentary says, an awareness that mistakenly superimposes the opposite onto things that in reality are without entityness refers to the innate conception of true existence that superimposes an ultimate existence on phenomena that lack ultimate existence. But what is this talking about? This is talking about the innate grasping in the mind from the Svatantrika point of view. It superimposes the opposite onto things that are in reality without entityness. So that means things that are actually lacking inherent existence, it superimposes the opposite on that. It superimposes inherent existence onto them. That refers to the innate conception of true existence. When you say innate conception, that means the innate grasping, that conceptual mind, mental consciousness, which is believing, grasping at things as inherently existent. That refers to the innate conception of true existence that superimposes ultimate existence or true existence onto phenomena that lack ultimate existence, that lack true existence. Such an ignorant consciousness, which is the conception of true existence, is called a concealer or an obstructor, which is closer to the actual Tibetan, because that the ignorant consciousness obstructs other minds from seeing reality, which is non-true existence, and it conceals the final mode of being from them. So from the Svatantrika point of view, what's happening is that what's appearing to our senses is the way things actually are, inherently existent phenomena. But that is modified, they are prevented from seeing that reality by this conception of true existence in their mental continuum. That mental continuum, conceptual mind grasping at true existence, acts as a modifier or concealer for itself to see reality, and for the sense consciousnesses to see reality. What is appearing to them is not true existence, but their perception of what appears to them is modified, changed by that conceptual mind. I think Mary Ellen is listening because she has that look. Am I getting this right? What do you think, Mary Ellen? Is that making sense?
Not a whole lot. And there's also a hand up, Richard Einhorn.
Okay, you want to hand off to Richard. Okay, that's good. Okay, Richard, what do you think?
The question I have is, you said that this concealer occurs before the sense consciousness. In other words, it's before the sense consciousness. I don't understand how that's possible.
So the sense consciousnesses and the mental consciousness and the mental consciousness. Here we're talking about the conception grasping to true existence, right? The grasping to true existence.
Right.
Are both existing concurrently. What is, according to Svatantrika, what appears to the senses, let's say, use the eyes as example. You could also talk about what we think we hear and smell and taste and touch and so forth. What is actually appearing is the appearance of inherently existent phenomena, which Svatantrika says is their conventional existence. Prasangika doesn't agree with that. Oh, Mary Ellen.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just simply don't understand. How can there be something that makes the sense consciousness? How can something appear to the sense consciousness prior, with this concealer prior to the sense consciousness? It just doesn't make any sense to me. It would seem to me that the order would be the sense consciousness would perceive something, and then a mental consciousness would then create the obstruction. How can the obstruction occur before it's perceived?
So let's go back. So from a Prasangika point of view, phenomena appear to be inherently existent. The senses don't discriminate that. They're just like the cameras, the what do you call it? The surveillance cameras, right? They're not thinking about whether they actually exist that way or not. And it's the mental consciousness that has access to the sense consciousness information. It's that mental consciousness that sees that appearance of inherent existence and goes along with it. That's the Prasangika point of view. From the Svatantrika, things don't appear to be inherently existent. They appear just the way that they are. They don't appear to be truly existent. They appear to be inherently existent, which Svatantrika says is correct, right? They are, again, just like surveillance cameras, and the mental consciousness modifies the understanding of that information by means of that concealing mind. It goes on to say in a couple more sentences that for Lama Tsongkhapa interpretation here, phenomena do not appear to be truly existent to the sense powers from the Svatantrika point of view. It's all modified by the mental consciousness grasping to true existence.
Okay, thank you.
So, as I said, this is very complicated. So we'll be going over it in a little more detail. Mary Ellen, what are you thinking?
I was thinking that that's the way it is in the Prasangika as well. So the sense consciousnesses are just that lens. They see what's there. And then immediately the mental consciousness jumps in and starts.
Well, the difference here is that for the Prasangika, phenomena are actually appearing to be inherently existent, appearing to be truly existent. They actually appear from their own side, what appears to our consciousnesses. So that information, that appearance of true existence comes down to the mental consciousness and is sort of accepted by it, is believed by the mental consciousness, right? Okay. Whereas Svatantrika, they're appearing the way that what Svatantrika says they actually are, as inherently existent. That's different than truly existent. They say they are inherently existent, and that's the way that they appear. And in the mental consciousness, what prevents you from seeing that is this conception of true existence that conceals that. So it's a slight difference from that. William, what are you thinking?
I just wanted to talk about self-arisen.
Okay.
Inherent existence is a self-arisen phenomenon.
Say again?
I would say inherent existence is postulated to be a self-arisen phenomenon, inherently existent from its own side, so and so on, self-arisen. So a self-arisen phenomenon, according to the theories, cannot exist. Therefore, wouldn't be.
That's not exactly right, William. Self-arisen means something different. You know, there's 2 stupas in in Kathmandu, one at Bodhanath and one at Swayambhu. You know what Swayambhu means? Swayambhu? It means self-arisen. So many statues in Tibet, like I told the stories before, that it's as though they arise from their own side without having been created by someone. That's not usually what's is said to be a synonym of hypothetical true existence or inherent existence. We're a little bit mixing terminology.
Well, I don't in those statues being self-arisen either, but I'm opposing it to dependently arisen. In other words, phenomena exist as conventionalities dependently arisen, all phenomena. And to believe that something is self-arisen means it didn't take anybody else to create it. So inherent existence is one of those phenomena, and it's like the son of a barren woman in that it is a non-existent. So I think if we see that self-arisen, existing from its own side, all of the million different words that Jeffrey Hopkins used in his meditation book to describe it, that this thing by its very nature cannot have dynamism in it. It can't create anything. It can't.
Part of what you're saying is correct, but I'm just saying that the term, and we will, when we identify what hypothetically inherent existence would have, those factors that you're talking about will come in. It's just that it's not usually called self-arisen. That's not usually one of the synonyms. We say self-existent, existing from its own side, and so forth. But anyway, let's leave that for the time being. Sean, you have a question?
I was wondering, I mean, maybe because of the eclipse I missed it, but did you explain the difference between how the Svantantrikas are using true versus inherent existence? Because I thought in the Prasangika, true and inherent were the same thing.
Right. So that's that material will be covered. I don't want to say ad nauseum, which sounds like until you're nauseated. That will be covered in detail later. But basically, this true existence generally for all the schools means that, let's say, go to the word true. If something is true, that means it exists the way that it appears. Okay, if something is true, it exists the way that it appears. So for the lower schools in the Hinayana, the Vaibhashika and the Sautrantika, phenomena appear to be findable within their bases. And for them, they do exist that way. So they're called proponents of true existence, right? The proponents of non-true existence are the Prasangikas. Chittamatra is kind of like in between. Chittamatra says phenomena appear to be existing externally, but are actually devoid of that. But the mental consciousness is truly existent. It does exist the way that it appears. Well, let's just take this. So leave Chittamatra aside for a second. Take compare the proponents of true existence, the Hinayana schools, with the Madhyamaka. Madhyamaka says phenomena do not exist the way that they appear. So Svatantrika says they appear to be truly existent, but they are not. Prasangika says they appear to be truly existent, but in a subtler way, they appear to be inherently existent. What's the difference? Svatantrika says that phenomena exist on the conventional level, not in the ultimate, but on the conventional level, that phenomena exist inherently. Prasangika would say, no, they don't exist inherently on the conventional level or on the ultimate level. Svatantrika says phenomena do exist inherently conventionally, but they don't exist, they don't have inherent existence ultimately.
So let me clarify. So you
wait, just let me finish my sentence. They say inherent existence means it can be found within the basis of designation. So for Svatantrika, a person can be found within the aggregates, phenomena, something about the phenomena can be found within the phenomena. So who was making someone who was making a clarification?
Well, I just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
So you're saying the Svatantrikas are saying that objects are inherently existent.
Conventionally. Yeah, right. So there's a lot of subtleties here. Yeah.
But it seems like if they're calling what the mind is perceiving as a true existent based on that inherent existence, then why is there a concealer in their view?
So they mean by true existence, well,
like it seems like true existence
if we had
is seeing things as they are. If they are inherently existent, then it's seeing it correctly.
Yeah, the sense consciousnesses do see things correctly for Svatantrika. They see them as inherently existent, but that the concealer mind prevents them from seeing the ultimate nature of those, that they are ultimately not inherently existent. That concealer mind. right. So, like, as sort of like real head scratcher. If we had studied beforehand the tenet systems, especially Svatantrika and Prasangika, we'd already have this sort of terminology and differentiation in front of us. So the way that Svatantrika talks about phenomena not being truly existent is something more gross than the Prasangika says that phenomena are not truly existent. For Svatantrika, let's see how to say. My mind is blank here. all these questions. Svatantrika believes that phenomena conventionally exist in the sense that they can be found inherent within their basis of designation, that they are imputedly existent, that they are designatedly existent, just as Prasangika would use those things, that they exist by means of mere imputation, conventionally, but still you can find within the basis of designation some essence of what you're designating on it, without having that sort of essence to be able to designate a dog as a dog. If there wasn't a need from the side of the basis of designation, let's say the aggregates of the dog's body and mind and so forth, if there was no need for some essence of dog to be there to impute dog, you could impute dog to your digital thermometer, or you could impute dog to anything else if there was no need to have some inherent existence there. So that's a big difference from the Prasangika. And that's this whole section, which is quite long, is going to be going into detail about this. But that's just an overview right now. Svatantrika is saying phenomena do not exist in the way that they appear to be truly existent, but they do exist inherently. So just leave that in your mind for the time being as we go a little bit further. Doris, did you have, you were making some different mudras. I'm not sure if you were, Roshio also heard her.
I think John had something.
They're thinking mudras.
Thinking mudras. Anyone? Jennifer also has her thinking mudra. Savage.
Weren't you saying something, John?
I was going to hazard one thing, but let me see if it's worth. I'll give it a try. Is this correct, George? That both Svatantrika and the Prasangika are going to, they would agree on this use, this etymology of samvritti as being concealer. They're going to both use it that way.
Right.
But what they say is being concealed is that they're not in agreement on that, because for the Svatantrika, what's being concealed is the ultimate nature of something. For the but the Prasangika would say about that they are in fact mistaken, because there is no inherent existence, even conventionally. Right. And so what is the concealer part, so far as when they talk, when obviously that's not the only meaning of conventional?
Well, let's say this. So samvriti can mean conventional, relative, or concealer, right? So when we talk about, in this context, in that one statement, in that one quotation from the Lankavatara Sutra, samvriti is used in two different ways, once as conventional truth and once as concealer.
Yeah.
So what's it concealing? What's the ignorant mind concealing? It's preventing us from seeing the ultimate nature of phenomena.
Right.
Tantrika would also say the ultimate nature of phenomena is emptiness. Right? It's preventing us from seeing emptiness. Prasangika says the concealing mind, the grasping, the innate mind that's grasping to inherent existence, is preventing us from seeing the ultimate nature of phenomena, which is emptiness. So that much they agree. When we're talking about the conventional level, there's a big difference. Even when you talk about what things are empty of, there's a difference. You say that you use the same word, emptiness, shunyata, but what they're empty of, Prasangika says that they are empty of true existence. They are also empty of inherent existence. That phenomena don't exist inherently on the conventional level or the ultimate level. Right. But Tantrika says that phenomena do exist on the conventional level inherently. You can find something within the basis of imputation. Like say, for instance, you can find something that refers to the person. Ultimately, maybe the mental consciousness. Stephen's mental consciousness is maybe the ultimate inherent nature that we can impute Stephen onto the five aggregates. But if you go through them, the body changes, changes, but it's actually the mental consciousness, Svatantric would say. And even there, there's Sautrantika versus Yogacara Svatantrika. So let's let these doubts and apparent contradictions percolate a little bit. Let's go on a little bit further. Let's see, where are we here? Okay, so let me read Anne's final statement here. Where is it? So Anne says, the mistaken awareness that superimposes, and I'm reading on Anne 168, right after the quotation. So this is still quoting Kamalashila, right? The mistaken awareness that superimposes on things which in reality are without their own entityness, their own true existence, an aspect opposite to that part of the quotation refers to a consciousness that mistakes what does not ultimately exist inherently to exist ultimately. This state of mind is called a concealer because it obstructs itself from perception of suchness, the concealer mind, or because it veils or hinders other awarenesses from perception of suchness. That is the meaning of the concealer of reality in that quotation from the Lankavatara. Samvriti here is taken as meaning obstructor, concealing reality. So don't worry, we're going to go over this again in our next class to clarify, but it will go further. But I'll read from Anne now. Since an artificial awareness in the continuum of a proponent of true existence. Oh wait, yeah. So this is the one that both Anne and Jimpa adding all of these other things from Peldon, from this other Nawan Peldon's commentary. Since it arises from that conception of true existence, that which sees the display by the conception of true existence as if objects are truly established is a conceptual consciousness, not a sense consciousness. That which sees the display by the conception of true existence. So this conception of true existence modifies what the sense consciousnesses are seeing. So maybe you could say like it causes the person in the basement watching the input from the cameras to be inebriated in some sense. How to say? Since that which sees the display by the conception of true existence as if objects are truly established is a conceptual consciousness, not a sense consciousness. Because Gyanagarbha's auto-commentary on distinguishing the two truths, and I think probably maybe some of you librarians, some of you have this book. David, do you have this book? Gyanagarbha on the two truths. So this is Malcolm David Eccles' translation of portions of that text. So Gyanagarbha was a Sautrantika Svatantrika, right? So he says, for Gyanagarbha's auto commentary, his own commentary on that two truths, explains that true existence, the object of negation, so Svatantrika, all the Svatantrikas believe the object of negation is true existence, not inherent existence. This text explains that true existence, the object of negation, does not appear to sense consciousnesses. And it is the same here in the Yogacara Svatantrika Madhyamaka. So that's where I want to end, but I just want to ask you, what do you think that means? It is the same here. So I think the implication is this. Kamalashila was Yogacara Svatantrika, right?
Yeah.
Gyanagarbha is considered to be Sautrantika Svatantrika, more aligned with Bhava Viveka. Kamalashila, Shantarakshita and Kamalashila are Yogacara Svatantrikas. So the quotation in the Two Truths commentary by Gyanagarbha is saying that true existence does not appear to the sense consciousnesses, and it is also the same here in the context of the Yogacara Svatantrika. That's the meaning. It's also the same for Kamalashila, even though Kamalashila doesn't say that explicitly, that true existence does not appear to the sense consciousnesses. What appears is just dependent arising, just inherently existent phenomena, which is the way that they actually exist conventionally. And it's only due to the influence of the mental consciousness that display, what is displayed to the consciousness is understood as being truly existent. Okay, yeah. Mikhail, what do you think?
Thank you. I really don't understand why Anne Klein is adding in brackets in the continuum of a proponent of true existence.
Right. So as Jeffrey had, where was that? As Jeffrey had said, let me read from his translation of that.
What page are you reading from?
Okay, hold on. Let me get it. Okay, so on page 189 in Jeffrey's final exposition of emptiness. So what this part that we're reading here is from, I think this is the Lanrim Ding, right? I'm going to drop this. Oh no, this is his translation of Gompa Rapsel. This particular section from Gompa Rapsel. So after giving the quotation from the Lankavatara, Jeffrey translates, all false things seen, displayed by that consciousness. What consciousness is that talking about? That apprehends them as if they were truly established, truly existent. All things seen, displayed by. So that means that mental consciousness grasping the true existence causes a display in the mind in the mental consciousness as if they were truly established due to having arisen from it are called just obscurational.
Yeah, but saying consciousness, apprehending them as if they were truly established, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But saying from the proponents of true existence, that's weird, no?
Okay,
I
so
mean,
that's sorry, what?
No.
So what let me find the place in Anne that she's saying that. So which page in
the last paragraph we read with the Janagarbha auto commentary on distinguishing the two truths, the same paragraph is starting with since bracket.
Which page is that?
Sorry, I have the
okay
online version.
Oh, okay, yeah. So on page 167 at the bottom, right after the quotation from in Anne's translation of Lama Tsong Khapa, right after the quotation from the Lankavatara Sutra, still a citation from Kamala Shila. Kamala Shila is saying, since, and she has in brackets, an artificial awareness in the continuum of a proponent of true existence arises from that. So that's the question you have. Why?
Yeah.
She puts in that. So that's not in Kamala Shila. That's some annotation from Nawang Pelden that Lama Tsong Khapa, in that comment that one of you helped me find, I can't remember who helped me find that before, said, Jeffrey Hopkins said he thought Nawang Pelden, some of the annotations made it more complicated than it actually needed to be. Okay. So maybe you can leave that part off, that parenthetical phrase, since it, that's talking about the grasping to inherent existence, arises from that conception of true existence. Oh, wait. Anyway, we'll have to go over that idea. That's just where we're stopping, okay? We'll go over this next time. Where we're stopping is the commentary to the truths. The commentary to the truths states that true existence, which is the object of negation, does not appear to sensory perceptions. That's where we're going to begin next time, okay? Doris, I think I asked you to remind me something. What was that?
About no discussion on Monday.
All right, thank you. I had even forgotten. Thanks. So I have to go to the ophthalmologist for my glaucoma, who Sister Diana helped me pronounce correctly. I was saying glaucoma. When I texted her a message and I just set it into my iPhone, it wrote glaucoma, and she scolded me saying, "No, you have to understand it's glaucoma." So I don't think I'll be able to be back in time for class on Monday. So no discussion this Monday. If you'd like to meet, contact each other, contact Doris. You can go on the same, the Zoom will be there, and you can try to iron out some of these thoughts, okay? So any last questions? Diana Weddingen, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I just need to think about the difference between true existence and inherent existence. I'm getting confused with the terminology.
Yeah. So if you have some of the texts that we used to study tenets when you were at Land of Medicine Buddha, you might still have the PDFs. go back and see if there some explanation there. Don, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I've got one question. I'll wait till next week when we get back, though.
Oh, really? Why? What's that question?
I just wanted to, well, when it says in Anne's book, it conceals other consciousnesses, other awarenesses. I don't know what the other awarenesses are.
Right. That's also seemed confusing to me. So I think what that means is this: the grasping mind itself obscures itself from seeing reality, and all of the other minds, let's say mental factors within that, are obscured. The display to the senses are also obscured from seeing their ultimate reality due to the influence of that. So this paragraph, this citation from Kamalashila is quoted by everyone because it's the only indication in the Svatantrika system, as opposed to Prasangika, that is identifying the object of negation and identifying apparently what conventional truth is. All of the other definitions in the tenet books that say what Svatantrika accepts as ultimate, as the object of negation and so forth, all of them derive from Kamalashila's citation here. So it's important to try to kind of understand that. Diana Abramo, what do you think?
Where exactly will we be starting in the Geshe Jempa text, please?
So you have the
yeah,
ebook, right? So the commentary to the truths states that true existence, comma, which is the object of negation, comma, does not appear to sensory perception. Okay. Ida, what do you think?
Wondering, Venerable, thank you. I was wondering if, feeling comes before attachment and grasping. And I was kind of wondering if this feeling is part of that concealer that doesn't allow you to see, reality as it is.
Feeling itself doesn't know by its own power. Let's say feeling in the retinue of the consciousness that's realizing emptiness, or feeling in the retinue of the consciousness that's grasping to true existence, that feeling grasps to true existence, not by its own power, but by the power of the mental consciousness that it's a member in. Like say let's say the gang leader, the motorcycle gang leader, along with all of the other people on their bikes, that gang leader perpetrates some crime. All of the other people in his retinue, all of the other gang members that are there when he's attacking the liquor store or something, all of them are equally indictable for the crime, not by their own power, because they were just there. They were in his retinue. Maybe like that.
But feeling permeates the consciousness. So
what do you mean? Feeling is a quality of mind, quality of consciousness. It's called a semjong, or that which arises from the mind, right? The primary consciousness knows the general essence, entity of the perceptual field. The mental factors are those qualities of the mind. They're still part of the mind that are knowing particular aspects of it. So feelings particular, the particular quality of mind to experience pleasure, pain, or equilibrium feeling is called feeling. So you could say in all consciousnesses that are, say, fully awakened in the sense that you're not asleep, you're not dozing, you're not intoxicated, and so forth. It's not the death mind or the birth mind. All of these regular minds, that factor of feeling is omnipresent, is always present. So then what? What's your conclusion then?
Well, I'm thinking that, well, actually what I'm talking about is the combination of thought and feeling. That would probably be emotion, I guess. I'm talking from my own experience.
So when you're saying feeling, are you talking about the mental factor feeling, or are you talking about emotion? Like I
think I'm talking about the combination of thought and feeling that gives rise to
feeling. When you say feeling, you're talking about emotion, like, oh, I feel bad. Is that what you're talking about, feeling?
Well, sort of. I'm not very clear. I'm trying to talk about my own experience when identifying the sense of self. And what I'm finding is that the emotion or the feeling that I'm having at the moment trying to identify the sense of self is concealing that holographic image that I'm trying to create or identify.
So you're not talking about the mental factor Vedana, Sorwa feeling that experiences pleasure, pain, or indifference. You're not talking about that. You're just talking about feeling. You're using it like the feeling I get an uneasy feeling or something like that. So that's just a combination of various maybe positive or negative mental factors arising in combination that you give some name to. I get an uneasy.
Well, I guess let me sadness, for example, when someone is rude to you or offensive or insensitive in some way, I don't necessarily get angry with the person, but I do get sad. And at the same time, I mean, I'm being mindful in trying to identify that sense of self. But I see, I get more sad about the person doing those actions than what is doing to me. But then again, I'm not able to have that sense of self. I don't know if I'm, actually, I have a sense of self more clearly when there's a compliment to me. For example, that really just shoots me to the moon, and I really feel that presence. Wow, yeah, sure.
Right. So you're saying that as opposed to that, if someone were to criticize you and say, Ida, you're not a good housekeeper, there's dust on the table, or you didn't wash the dishes or something, you only feel sad about the person. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Well, I'm talking about a stronger behavior, like a more offensive behavior on another person.
To you. Okay, right. Well, the sense of I seems to be almost always there. Okay. The appearance to your mental consciousness of I, the sense of I.
But it's so
very subtle. It's very subtle, and therefore we sometimes say it's useful to, at the beginning, in order to locate it, to instigate it somehow by thinking of being abused or being complimented, or just thinking how you think someone is talking to me. See, who is the me that it's talking to? It's not your body. You're not talking. He's not talking to your ear. They're not talking to your mind. They're talking to you. So it's that you that's that me, that I, that is the object of negation. Whether you can instigate it, whether it's instigated more, how do you say, dramatically by someone offending you or complimenting you, that doesn't matter. There may be individual differences. What instigates that sense of I, but that sense of I is always there, and that's the thing that we have to try to identify eventually.
Right. Yes. Well, I think for me, it's easier to identify the sense of I as a process, as an interconnected phenomena, as something changing. That's what mind is, a process. Is not a thing.
So
it's harder for me to identify the inherent
famous Italian mudra here. So we're talking about two different things now. I'm not sure what you're thinking of. When we're talking about identifying the object of negation here, it's not talking about what you're talking about.
Well, what I'm saying is that it's easier for me to rationalize what a sense of self is, as a process, as a transient thing.
Yeah, but that's not what
is to identify the inherent existence of
that's not what's being talked about here. What that so-called process and everything is sort of like on a much superficial level. Like, I am a woman. I am, I am over 39. I don't know. Maybe you're under 39. I am, this or that. I am an American. I am a German. I am this. All of those are superficial level. Subtly down, once you go through all of those processes of what you think I am, there is a subtle sense of I within the mental consciousness. That's the object that we have to try to see how it is appearing. Let's leave that for the time being.
Very difficult.
Yeah, maybe.
Thank you.
Rocio, you have a question? One last question from Rocio.
No, actually, it's not a question. It's that I just found an extra copies I have of a book from Illuminating of the Intent by Jeffrey Hopkins, and it has a whole chapter on concealer of truths, explanation of concealer, the concealing consciousness, the actual meaning of that. And I think that, I'm just going to go and read a little bit of it. Thupten Jinpa also has, is this book? Is this same book that we're reading right now?
Yes, there you go.
Now I have 3 copies. I have
Okay.
Jinpa and Klein and the one from Robert Thurman that was a handout at Deer Park long ago.
Okay.
Now Jeffrey Hopkins.
Yeah, Jeffrey Hopkins. Okay. So, was it Mary Ellen? Would you like to put up our dedication prayers? Just as a reminder, we're not going to have class on Thanksgiving weekend, and we're not going to have a discussion group. At least I'm not going to attend the discussion group on Monday. If you guys would like to get together, maybe you can contact one another, Nadine or Doris or someone or Stephen, and just discuss this material. Due to these virtues, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all migrators without exception into that enlightened state. So we created virtues, thinking hard about this material, having the patience of trying to understand the unborn. When we talked about this various kinds of patience, having the patience to go through this material. So dedicating that merit to our eventual achievement, enlightenment, so that we can effortlessly and spontaneously, without error, lead sentient beings out of suffering, ocean of suffering, of cyclic existence, into the everlasting happiness of enlightenment. May the supreme precious bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, and what's her name? We'll just move the line up a bit. There we go. But increase more and more. The long life prayer for Lama Zopa, or not the long life prayer, the prayer for the swift return. Peerless teacher and assembly of children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, together with your lineage, all objects of refuge of the infinite realms, please bestow the virtue and goodness to accomplish this prayer. Please now, here and now, bestow the virtue and goodness to accomplish this prayer. You, Lama Zopa, while holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, Lama Zopa practiced so assiduously and spent so much time explaining to us. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make this request. Sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, while striving exclusively, well, both for the welfare of the victorious one's teachings, Buddhist teachings, and for the welfare of mother living beings. You suddenly departed to peace. You passed away. What a loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the oceanic blessings of the three jewels and the great waves of the bodhicitta of the bodhisattvas, may the smile of the new reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for us fortunate disciples. You, gurus, who are my eyes for viewing all the infinite scriptures, the supreme gateway for the fortunate ones traveling to liberation, engaging as you do with skillful means, moved by mercy, all illuminating spiritual friends, please live long and stable lives. Spend a moment sealing the dedications, because we can dedicate the merits in various ways, as we have. Sealing it in the emptiness of the three spheres. The merits themselves, the virtues themselves, collection of merit and collection of wisdom, conceptually appear to our mind. We can conceive of them in some way, as though, although we don't see them with our eyes, we can conceive of them, but that conception of them seems to superimpose upon them some inherent existence that they don't have. The objects dedicated to, the goals dedicated to our eventual enlightenment, long life of our gurus, quick return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and so forth, all conceptually appear to our mind, superimposed with an appearance of inherent existence, which does not in fact exist. They are empty of that inherent existence. And the process of dedicating, connecting these virtues with those goals, When we say I dedicated, I mean, it's strong dedication, something that rises in our mind, is something findable. But dedication can't be found on any element of the process we just went through. It's just a process connecting these merits with those goals, merely imputed, not inherently existent, but still functioning. Okay, thank you so much. Good to see you. I'm not sure who will, maybe Sheila. Is Sheila still here? If you could get the recording to us early, we'll send off to Snehi, who apparently missed, and to Paul and to some others. Look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.